Imagine you are sitting at your desk on a Tuesday afternoon, dealing with the usual pile of emails and deadlines. Your phone rings. You look at the caller ID and see the name of your company's CEO. You answer, and the voice on the other end is unmistakable. It is your boss, with that familiar cadence, that specific tone, and that same urgent, slightly stressed demeanor you have heard in a dozen company meetings. They tell you that a highly confidential acquisition is underway and that you need to initiate an urgent, secret wire transfer to a third-party account to finalize the deal. They emphasize that this is sensitive information, that you shouldn't tell your manager yet, and that time is of the essence. You feel the pressure, you feel the responsibility, and you feel the need to execute the request to prove your competence. So, you process the transaction. Millions of dollars leave the corporate accounts. Only later, when you check in with the CEO directly, do you realize that the person you spoke to was not the CEO at all. It was an AI. This is the reality of the Deepfake CEO scam, a new frontier in cybercrime that is costing global businesses millions, and in some cases, billions of dollars every single year. The technology behind this is relatively new, but it is evolving at a breakneck pace. We have moved past the era of grainy, robotic-sounding voice synthesis. Today, generative AI models can clone a person's voice with incredible precision after hearing just a few seconds of audio from a public interview, a podcast, or a social media video. Once the AI has processed these snippets, it can generate speech that mimics not just the pitch and tone, but also the breathing patterns, the regional accent, and the unique idiosyncrasies of the target. When combined with deepfake video technology, which can map an actor's facial expressions onto a target's likeness in real time, the result is a digital puppet master capable of convincing even the most vigilant employees. This is no longer the stuff of science fiction or high-budget spy thrillers, it is an accessible tool for cybercriminals. What makes this particular type of crime so effective is that it exploits human psychology rather than just software vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity experts have spent decades hardening our firewalls, encrypting our databases, and training employees to spot phishing emails. We are conditioned to look for misspelled domains, suspicious links, and bad grammar. But how do you train an employee to be skeptical of their own senses? When we hear a familiar voice, our brain triggers a response of trust and authority. We are biologically wired to respond to leaders and figures of authority, and when that authority figure calls with an urgent, confidential request, the desire to please often overrides our critical thinking. The scammers know this. They aren't hacking a server, they are hacking the human mind. They are blending the old-school technique of business email compromise, or BEC, with the new-school power of artificial intelligence. These scams follow a highly calculated pattern. They often start with reconnaissance. The attackers spend weeks, sometimes months, scraping the company's public footprint. They watch the CEO's YouTube interviews, they analyze their LinkedIn posts, and they monitor the company's internal organizational charts. They identify who has the authority to sign off on financial transactions, and they build a profile of that employee. When the time comes to strike, they don't just call out of the blue. They often initiate contact through a series of internal-sounding emails that set the stage, creating a narrative of a high-pressure, time-sensitive situation. By the time the phone rings, the victim is already primed to believe that they are part of something big. The deepfake voice is simply the final seal of authenticity that pushes the victim to take action. The financial damage is staggering. Unlike a credit card breach where you can freeze an account or reverse a transaction, these wire transfers are often immediate and cross-border. Once the money hits a money mule account, it is often split into smaller amounts, converted into cryptocurrency, and moved through a series of tumblers or mixers that effectively scrub the trail. By the time the company realizes something is wrong, the money is gone. And it is not just the money, it is the reputational damage and the loss of trust within the organization. When employees realize they have been duped, the morale within a finance or operations department can crater. It creates a culture of paranoia where no one trusts anyone, which can be just as damaging to a company's long-term success as the financial loss itself. So, how do we defend against a threat that looks and sounds exactly like our colleagues? The first line of defense is a paradigm shift in corporate culture. We must move away from the assumption that if it looks real, it is real. This requires implementing zero trust protocols specifically for communications. For any financial transaction, no matter how urgent it is claimed to be, there must be a mandatory multi-factor verification process that does not rely on the medium that initiated the request. If you get a call, you must verify it through a secondary, pre-approved channel, a different app, a direct extension, or a predetermined secret code word that only the authorized parties know. If the CEO asks you to wire money, you don't do it because they asked. You do it because you verified the request through a separate, secure, non-digital channel. Furthermore, companies need to start training their staff to treat audio and video with the same skepticism they treat an email link. We are entering an era of zero-trust media. Just as we verify the source of an email, we must verify the authenticity of a voice. There are emerging technologies, such as digital watermarking and blockchain-based identity verification, that could eventually allow us to authenticate communications in real time, but until those tools are ubiquitous, the burden falls on human behavior. We need to normalize the act of questioning authority. A culture where an employee feels comfortable saying, "I understand this is urgent, but per our company protocol, I need to verify this via another channel," is a culture that is effectively protected against deepfake fraud.